Okay, let's go back to the pigeonhole thing here. How do you clean your room when your spouse doesn't share that goal? Huh. Well, that's another one of those questions that's really hard to answer because I don't have the details, you know. How do you clean your room? What goals does your spouse have? That's the first thing. I mean, is there some commonality? I mean, it might be. Maybe your spouse is much more disorderly than you, or less conscientious, or irritated at you for all sorts of reasons. You know, the first thing you could do is try to lead by example and see how that works. But you may have to argue and fight it out, you know, break it down into subtasks and see if you can distribute the tasks and negotiate. You have to negotiate. And without further information, I can't say much more than that. You know, you can say why you're doing it, what you think the goal was, and that you'd like some help, and maybe there's something you could offer in return. If you can't negotiate at all with your spouse, then you have a much broader problem than how do you clean your room when your spouse doesn't share that goal, because the real problem would be how do you learn to negotiate with your spouse. I could talk about that a little bit. I mean, the first thing that you have to do if you want to negotiate with someone is be able to say no. The second thing is to have something to offer. The third thing is to find out what they want and to know what you want, you know, because often people, especially with people that love them, they say, well, if you really loved me, then you'd know what I want. It's like, no, that's just wrong. The person that you are in love with or that living with isn't any smarter than you. And so you pretty much always have to tell people straight out what you want. And then you have to let them be really stupid about giving it to you for quite a while, you know. So sometimes I've recommended to my clients that they take their wife or husband out on a date. And of course, they're all skeptical about that and cynical about it. And then they go on a date and they have a terrible time and they come back and say, oh, I told you that was a stupid idea. And I tell them, well, that's it then, eh? You're not going to do anything romantic with your spouse for the next 40 years. That's your plan. That's the plan, is it? It's like you might have to go out to a movie after you haven't been good to each other for like 5 years. You might have to go out to a movie 10 times, movie and dinner, say, before it starts to become fun again. It's like, it's hard to do that sort of thing right. You know, people think those things are easy and they're not. So anyways, you have to learn to negotiate with your spouse. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So figuring out what you want is a good way to start. So